Welcome back to AMC Presents. Today's guest is trailblazing conductor Gemma, known for her powerful interpretations and artistic leadership on the world stage. She is artistic advisor and principal conductor of the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, where she's reshaping the future of classical music. She made history as the first female principal guest conductor of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra and previously served as music director of the Hamilton Philharmonic Orchestra. Gemma has conducted major ensembles including the Los Angeles Philharmonic, Cleveland Orchestra, the Philadelphia Orchestra, and major international ensembles such as the Royal Philharmonic and the Prague Philharmonia. In this interview, we explore her musical vision, her creative process, and what drives her work on the podium. Remember to like and subscribe. Now let's welcome William Ford and Gemma New.
Hey there.
Hi, you must be William.
Yes, I am. Good to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How about you?
Yes, I think more than okay, quite positive, having a good day, and I hope your day also blooms into something very good too.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Atlanta. I have a few days off, so it's nice to be home. I've been away for a month, and then I go away again at the end of the week for 6 weeks. I really love it here. I love the weather. I love the city. Just walking around and the people. Everyone's so friendly, and I love the airport. That's kind of why I moved. Handy to. Sometimes I just fly in the morning, and then I'm here for the afternoon, and then I leave again. But it just being home a little bit grounds me a lot.
Okay. What area of town do you live in?
Midtown.
Okay. Oh, not far from Symphony Hall then.
Yes, that's true. Yes, very much. I love the area, and I've got this very nice view of the Kennesaw Mountains.
I am a psychologist, by the way, so I do like to delve a little bit into childhood.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
To see how that kind of environment and impacts and so on led to you being the kind of superstar that you are today. I was reading a bit about your background, and of course, you were born in New Zealand.
Yes.
You grew up in a musical family.
Yeah, there was music on all the time, and my mum still plays violin in community orchestras. So, yeah, she's working on, I think, Beethoven Eroica Symphony right now, which is
All right.
yeah.
When is it that you got involved in music?
Well, I started playing the violin at 5 because my mum did, and then I started playing piano at 7, and started playing in orchestras at school. We had a very strong music program at the school I was at, which I think really helped, and also great youth orchestras in the city and also nationally. So once I became part of an orchestra, I fell in love with playing the violin and all the repertoire that we did, and that really kicked it off for me. So I made a conscious choice. At the age of 12, we were playing pictures at an exhibition, and at the Great Gates of Kiev with 200 young people playing at the top of their lungs. I thought that I want to be involved with this for the rest of my life, and I don't know how, but let's find out. And then when I was 15, I had the opportunity to conduct for the first time, and it was very clear. I told my best friend, I want to be a conductor. This is it. This is where I belong. Right after doing the first performance in assembly, and it just felt like a natural fit because conducting, I had all my peers, people I really admired and loved working with, and looking at the score, seeing everyone's parts, fascinating. And I loved the analysis because I also love mathematics, and it's quite logical, the process of learning the score. And I like the leadership role. I feel already I was doing a little bit of leadership and felt like that was something that I could be involved in. And of course, the music is great. So those things drew me to it.
Between 15 and Peabody, what did you do?
When I told people that I wanted to be a conductor, they said, well, you got to learn your instrument for as long as you can, as much as you can, and of course, piano as well. So I definitely practiced really hard at the violin, and also got into as many orchestras as I could so that I could play the repertoire. And then at National Youth Orchestra in New Zealand, we had a guest conductor, Jacques Lacombe, come over, and I asked him if I could just ask him some questions about scores because I got a job with the youth orchestra already. I was 19, and he said, sure. And then we never talked about those scores at all, actually. But the next day he said, oh, I want to listen in the hall. Is there a conductor in the orchestra? And he let me conduct like something from the entire program at all the sound checks on our tour, and then gave me the recommendation letter to go to Peabody. And it felt like such a good fit when I auditioned. I really loved the teacher, and we were with orchestras, or at least strings and piano, for 5 times a week. Had a lot of opera and symphonic assistant work, and it was very hands-on, the program, which, yeah, it was also really great at Peabody. I had 2 years of boot camp there.
Anybody that you particularly want to give a shout out to for that experience?
At Peabody, we had 2 teachers, Gustav Meyer and Markand Thacker, and they both taught completely opposite ways of conducting. So you are creating a toolbox of tools that you can take out at different points, either gesturally or philosophically, any kinds of communication. And I found both of their teaching really overwhelming at the time, but still years on, you think, oh yeah, this is just the solution for this issue here or there. Every orchestra is so different, and it's building up that experience. Yeah, they were absolutely wonderful teachers.
Have you found that the sound of different orchestras have become kind of homogenized today?
No, I don't think so. There are very different styles depending on where you are, and it even doesn't have to be geographical. It can just be the ethos of the orchestra that you're at. But I've found that you come in the first rehearsal and you hear the sound that they're bringing, and sometimes it's incredibly clear that they have this tradition that's gone on for hundreds of years. Like, I was just in Italy last week, and there's this fiery nature there. Things explode. And it's in the music, and you can tell that's their character. And you know what's funny is that with that particular orchestra, I would say a huge amount of the orchestra retired since I was last there, and have a whole bunch of new players, and yet you still have that personality that is beaming from the orchestra. And there's a lot of examples like that. In the French way of playing, I played the same piece there as in Canada, like 1 week apart. And the sustain of the Canadian players, who were, I think, more Russian trained, they had these long lines, and in France, everything breathed and disappeared because it's more transparent. They don't sustain so much. You have to quite ask for it if you want it. So those are just some very obvious examples, I guess.
That would seem to make the French orchestras really well prepared to play a lot of French music.
That's true.
Because when you think of something like La Valse or any of Ravel, that's kind of what's required.
Yes, but then you look at Lyon, for example, who have had some American music directors, and they have a very more of a European, like German style of playing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that it's in France, they will play the same way. Every orchestra is very different.
Right, because I think it is important to appreciate the different sounds of different orchestras. And also the interaction, of course, with the hall that they're playing in.
That's true.
I imagine one could hear the Atlanta Symphony in Carnegie Hall and it'll sound quite different. Still quite good, but quite different than it does at Atlanta Symphony Hall, just because of the difference in acoustics.
Absolutely. Every single week I'm asked, oh, for this future program, what do you want for the string count? And I say, okay, I need to ask you 5 questions yet, because I need to know, one, what do you usually do? How big is your hall? What are the acoustics? What is tradition in the orchestra? In Hamilton, for example, where I was music director, I changed the string count quite massively, because you say, do you believe in uneven desks even? Because I don't like it. I think that there should always be pairs. like Noah's Ark. It just helps because then they can support each other with the page turns. If you have, especially with a per service orchestra, which Hamilton was, if we wanted to program Mahler orchestra size twice a year, which was so healthy for the orchestra and the audience and in the range of repertoire that we were able to give, we would then need to have something with Haydn and Bach, and like just you can be very specific and then choose your priorities that way. I find string count is a very interesting question for people.
Did you find it more difficult to conduct Mahler with a per service orchestra than with a full-time orchestra?
Oh, that's a good question. I love Mahler, and I always feel very grateful to do it because you don't get to do it all that often. Next year, I'm doing 3 Mahlers program, which is I'm very happy to do. But usually it's only maybe once or twice a year. I feel like if an orchestra is doing Mahler just once a year, they can't wait and they prepare for months and they come with the most genuinely beautiful spirit. And because it's so wild and emotional and dramatic, they add to that with what they're bringing because they tug onto it with all their passion, and it's very satisfying. And then with an orchestra that, does it every week, honestly, I haven't even had that experience. So I can imagine maybe they're a bit more settled with it, and there is a marination that has happened. But yeah, I'm not there yet. Every orchestra that I've done Mahler with, it's been a very, very special occasion.
Have you ever had the experience of conducting an orchestra that it just didn't work for you? In other words, either you didn't mesh with them or something was off. Did you ever have an experience like that?
It's like meeting a new person and trying to get to know them. I wouldn't say that something is a disaster ever. I think it's always a beautiful experience. It's a human experience, and there are always things that went really well. It's taking the other challenges as a learning curve. And honestly, I think sometimes your perspective is only one of 100. And so maybe it didn't go as badly as you thought it would, or the other way around. And maybe just take it in your stride and do your best. That I always just work really hard. I prepare as much as I can with the score, and then bring my best attitude. And really, there can't be any regrets once you've done that.
Are you no longer with Hamilton?
Oh, no, I had beautiful 9 years there as music director and then stepped down. And they have a wonderful new music director, James Kahane, who now lives in Hamilton. I'm very happy with the time that I had, and I'm looking forward to going back as well. It was a good 9 years, and then I need to focus a bit more on guesting, especially in Europe, and also weeks with opera, which is a long period. I have about 6 weeks in America and then 16 weeks in Europe this year. And then opera is always about 2 months.
So I can understand why you would choose a good airport, because you have to get to New Zealand and you have to get to Europe.
And I like living in the States and East Side. I used to live in San Francisco, and now it's East Coast is a lot more practical.
Mm-hmm.
I go to New Zealand about 3 times a year.
You must get a lot of frequent flyer miles.
I do, yeah.
When you are working New Zealand, how do you schedule that?
It just depends on how the calendar fits in, and that is always a very, very complex thing. But they do plan it at least, 2 years out, so I can see how things are panning out, and things come in week by week, and then you say, okay, can I fly from one end of the world to the other? Do I even have time to get from one end of the world to the other? And then figure it out.
Where have you conducted opera?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'm about to go to Santa Fe and do Britain Turn of the Screw for the summer. And last thing I did was at Opera Theatre of St. Louis, Susanna's Carlisle Floyd. And I did Elixir of Love in California at an amazing Napa Valley vineyard outdoor LED screen and wonderful singers and production. And that was really fun. I'm going to go do Barbara Seville in Houston in the spring next year.
Right.
So there's a few things off the top of my head.
Do you have a goal for how much opera you would like to conduct in a year, as opposed to, say, straight symphonic music?
Yes, it's always hard to put goals in that kind of way because you end up breaking the rules like almost immediately. Because if something comes in and it's great repertoire or it's people you really want to work with or the dates just seem so great and you say yes. So I always think open-minded is much better. But you're right. I think it's important to have a balance. And I definitely come from an orchestral symphonic background. I like to have one a year. I think that's a good balance.
When you're playing a piece that is like so well known and kind of an orchestra can play just by muscle memory, like Beethoven's Fifth or the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto, for example. Do you still study the score before that, just like it's new to you, or do you say, I got this, and I'm not going to spend much time with it?
Oh gosh, I think that would be quite dangerous. So I just went to Prague and did Sibelius 5, and they said they hadn't played a Sibelius Symphony in 20 years. How was I supposed to know that? I'd never seen them before. We had a wonderful experience. It was really hard, but I was so proud of the orchestra, like how much they just loved the music and brought it from that first rehearsal to the concert, which was really good. And then other orchestras, like I'm going to Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in London in June and doing Elgar Enigma variations. And what a thrill it is to do Elgar Enigma with that orchestra who knows it back to front. But it will be a very different experience from doing it with Indianapolis Symphony, which was also beautiful in October, where I brought my own set of parts. And they have also a beautiful tradition of playing that romantic repertoire, and the sound was incredibly stunning in their hall. But obviously, we had 4 rehearsals. This will be meeting them at 3 p.m. for a 7 p.m. concert in London. I love that orchestra too for different reasons. We had 1 rehearsal for Tchaik 5 last time, and yeah, you're right, they know it back to front. But it doesn't mean this orchestra in RPO, they don't sit back. In rehearsal even, they're very focused and let's get things fixed. And yes, absolutely, they work really hard. And then in the concert, they play with so much passion and love and beauty, and it's a real pleasure. So I know it will be the same with the Elgar, but I won't bring my parts, I'm going to see what they have on the page and melt into that, blend into that. So as a conductor, sometimes you have to be very versatile because you want to be on the same page as the orchestra. How do we communicate? How do we connect? And it's always very unique. We're all unique human beings. Orchestras are the same way.
When you're conducting, say Sibelius 5, what's going through your head?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm singing the line inside, obviously, and then obviously hearing what's being played and feeling the energy, pacing, and strength and character. It depends if you're in rehearsal or concert. In rehearsal, you're constantly thinking about what just happened and what you're going to prioritize in the rehearsal and how you're going to fix things. And I do dog ear the pages, the top of the pages as we go along, so that I can quickly flick back to those parts. And depending if it's the first rehearsal, second rehearsal, dress rehearsal, like they have different priorities or functions of what you're going to fix or focus on. So, and then of course you're always thinking about the future and you're in the zone. But if you're in the concert, you can think a lot more about just being in the moment. And I think that's the treat at the end of the week when we've all worked so hard to make things as close and best as possible and have our support all around. And we've made our plan, and we can then be quite generous in the concert to how we're feeling.
Do you think you do a lot of conducting during the concert? In other words, do you use your gestures in response to what's going on in order to tease it a little bit, make it a little louder, a little softer, speed it up a little bit? Do you do a lot of that? Or do you think most of that happens in rehearsal?
Oh, no, it's always really a conversation back and forth. And I think it's very different every single day. Depends on the orchestra as well, the way that they marinate over the rehearsal time. But, if something has happened just before when you played a section, a lot of it's unspoken, but you notice that perhaps, for example, a player's entry is late. That's a very black and white thing that can happen, a very obvious thing. So next time I'll be looking right at a lot more ready to give a gesture that is a bit more anticipatory, or something that just supports them to give them the whole bar, or something that helps their preparation. I think it's really different every time, and I get quite upset when people say that it's choreography, because I don't think it's that at all. I think if you're watching the whole process, and every time that we go through the same section of music, you'll find that my gestures are very different, because I'm reacting to what we've done before. And so that's a preparation thing, but it's also reacting to what has happened in the music just then, and how I think we should move forward. And the tempi can change so much. In the first concert, for example, if you have multiple concerts, the first concert, you're very much trying to prove something. Everyone is, they're like, yes, let's make it. It's something incredibly special. We haven't done it yet. We need to prove ourselves that we can do it. And then the second concert can often be a lot more calm and cool, or a lot easier, so it's faster, so it really depends. I mean, some orchestras, the more you do, the worse it is, and if you're doing less, they play better. So being very much deadpan and minimal works for some very specific orchestras, not a lot. And then other orchestras, I possibly am using bigger gestures, but they're relaxed, and they're a bit more just open, and that works for them. So I really do try to curtail my language, right? This is the language that you are giving to the orchestra and its needs.
Would you say that you have to give less direction to orchestras of the caliber, say, of Cleveland or Berlin or Philadelphia? Do you have to do less for them?
It really depends on what they need. The most ideal week is when, at the beginning of the week, you actually aren't giving too much at all, because you're letting things sink in, right? And then you get more specific in the second day. And in the dress rehearsal, you want to make sure that they feel really solid. And then in the concert, actually, you can then back off again. And things are more subtle, because you have this trust. That's an ideal week.
Are there people you really admire as a conductor?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of conductors that I admire, because I did 10 years of assisting work all over the country. And so I worked for 3 years at LA Phil, for example, and assisted Dudamel on 20 programs. And he has this incredible technique. And, I thought of it as some conductors just show the vowels, for example, just consonants, but I thought he had the whole alphabet in his hands, Or I love Esa-Pekka, his approach to music, his intellectual approach, and then he's got the clearest beat in the biz. That's what they like. The way he rehearses is just so calm, but very, very focused and intense. In St. Louis, of course, is Leonard Slatkin and David Robertson and Stefan Tanev. And I spent 4 years as an assistant there. So I was really, really glad to have the time with those three conductors, especially. And Jacques Lacombe at New Jersey Symphony, that was amazing. And then Andres Nelson's, I'm a big fan, having had 2 years at Tanglewood. He's a really great musician.
Do you listen to music yourself? What do you listen to?
Well, obviously, I do listen to a lot of classical. I try to be quite careful about it, because it can really affect my mood. But also, you start to get analyzing. So I use it as a function. If I'm studying a score, I usually use it to help program something, so that I know how a concert will feel when I'm programming a concert. And then I use it at the very end of the process of learning something, so that I've analyzed the score and I've learned it, and then I see what other people have done with it. But you're making an educated analysis of what's happened. And then when I'm relaxing, I actually just listen to Taylor Swift.
Classical music, when you're listening to it, It's part of the business for you.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you would like to cover?
You talked about programming. I just had the thought and I wanted to share. When I started conducting in France, I was shocked at how many times they chose French music. And you're saying, well, I'm a Kiwi conductor. How can I possibly offer you something about French music? And literally, I gave like the first orchestra I worked with in France 50 pieces, a long list, and they chose the 2 French pieces from the list. It was shocking, it's shocking to me. But there's something about it. When you program a concert, I don't think as a conductor you should go in and say, I want to do this piece, especially if you don't know the orchestra. You should trust that the artistic administrator is choosing something for the season that makes a beautiful balance and it's at the right time of the year. It's something that the audience and the orchestra will love. And you come in with the skills you have as a conductor and the knowledge that you have with the pieces as much as you can. But that has always been my approach about programming. It has to be what's right for the audience and the musicians and the time. And usually when you can trust the artistic administrator to make those decisions, and I always say it at the beginning of the email, please choose something that's best for everyone. We have incredibly special events. That's been really satisfying to do. So I just wanted to share that little bit. I am asked a lot to do American music in England and to do English music in America.
I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. And I hope sometime I see you on the street or something in Atlanta.
Oh, I hope so too. That would be lovely.
So anyway,
To each other at a concert. I'm
exactly.
sure. It's lovely to meet you.
Good to meet you and a good talk. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.